I can't really erase it from my mind what happened between this 40-something-year-old crusty dusty guy and his step-nephew. But there is a book for everyone. Our world is filled with such diversity, such a wide variety of peoples, cultures, tastes, and art, that it only makes sense that a certain story that relates dearly to one person may have no impact on another. Every story deserves to be read, unless it's this one. Expect the unexpected. They haven't had a woman live with them for years, almost animalistic. They eat, mate, and fight. Wow, I just finished the epilogue and acknowledgements, and I'm speechless. This author has brilliant writing skills and imagination that pushes her readers out of their comfort zone. So if you want to read this,
you better leave your shyness at the door.
The taboo matter, in parentheses, minor girl had
very little importance for me here.
And she has sex after 18 anyways. I've never been a religious person myself, but never have I ever wanted for these people leaving these 5-star reviews under this book to find God. Any sort of God. You might have heard about Credence by Penelope Douglas. You might have heard people describing it on BookTok'd as a dark romance, a forbidden romance, a taboo romance. So many big words and corporate lingo used to basically not say incest, PDF file, and sexual assault. But unlike the BookTok'd girlies that have romanticized this book to the point of no return, I will not sugarcoat my words, or the layers of brain tissue that were eroded after finishing this book. Because of this book, I have a strained relationship with my family now. So what is this book that I so indiscriminately hate on about, you might ask? Let me give you guys a small rundown. Credence by Penelope Douglas follows the story of Tiernan, a young woman who is sent to live with her uncle's stepfamily in the mountains after her parents' tragic double suicide, which she ends up discovering. And this double suicide is mainly because her dad found out that he had terminal cancer, and the mom and the dad were just these very narcissistic parents that were like, oh my god, we love each other so much that we basically love each other more than we love our daughter. So the mom was like, if you're gonna die, I want to die with you. I don't want to live in a world without you. Our daughter, she'll be fine, I think. They do not give a single flying fart about what would happen to their daughter after the tragic aftermath of their death. Tiernan is taken in by her step-uncle and his 2 sons and moves to Colorado. And at this point, you're already like, gee, I know what's gonna go down. So here, what I'm gonna do is not sugarcoat what happens in this book with vague remarks about forbidden romance. No, I will explain step by step all the reasons why this book just should not exist, and why anyone who's rated this book more than 2 stars should find God immediately. I think from the synopsis of the book, I immediately thought that Tiernan was gonna get involved with the brothers, and there was gonna be this like love triangle in between the 2 brothers until she settles finally on one guy. But no, Tiernan actually decides to have a full family special and decides to shaboink her step-uncle, a man described to be in his late 30s or early 40s. She's 17 years old when they meet, guys. You know, I too have some thoughts that would be considered, you know, too extreme, too far. I have thoughts that can be considered guilty pleasures. Well, actually, I changed my mind. Since I'm not religious, I don't feel guilty about experiencing pleasure, but religious or not, everyone can admit that everyone has those what-if thoughts. But you cannot torture that information out of me, let alone me writing them down for it to be published in a book. Why did you do this, Penelope Douglas? Why did you make the main character a minor, a 17-year-old girl, still in high school? This man is supposed to be her guardian. Yuck. My friend Penelope here, she tries so hard. She tries so hard to make us believe that this man, Uncle Jake, her legal guardian after her parents' passing, to make him seem so attractive, so manly, so sensual, that Tiernan just can't control herself. Again, yuck. But honestly, from the description we have of this man, both the physical description and the dialogue, and the unfortunate internal monologues, he sounds like the most white bread ass, dusty crusty, predatory, creepy, far right-wing, sexist, pedophile uncle that would always make you feel awkward in family gatherings. There is no way for me to, not even talking about accepting, no way for me to even digest this sort of thing. But he has a My Mexico tattoo on his back because of the woman he loved before. A Mexican woman, if you weren't able to tell. He has a tattoo that says My Mexico for the Mexican woman he loved. How can you not read this and immediately burst into laughter? Do you guys find this attractive? Do you guys find this romantic? Oh man, now I'm gonna go the rest of my life clutching my pearls in my chest thinking, why does my boyfriend not have my turkey tattooed on his chest? So there was a particular chapter before they engaged in horizontal relations, and we, for the first time, see Jake's, the uncle's, or the step-uncle's point of view. It is a chapter I wish I never read. It is a chapter I wish never existed. It is something that keeps me awake at night. I feel upset thinking, how can a woman write this? In this chapter, we see how Uncle Jake, it feels so weird calling him uncle, but that's what Tiernan calls him throughout the book. We see in this point of view exactly the way Jake views his minor 17-year-old nephew. Oh, but when they shaboing, she was actually 18. So what? 18 is a barely legal adult. That's not even an adult, dude. It's predatory and you can't deny it. If the legal age was 16, this guy would have preyed on her the moment she turned 16. If the legal age was 15, Jake would have shaboinged her when she was 15. Do y'all want me to go lower? At 18, you're vulnerable. At 18, you're not an adult. You don't know anything. I thought when I was gonna go to university, those were gonna be the best years of my life. The way he views Tiernan, the word he uses to describe his step-nephew, yuck. Again, he's like talking about her legs and her wearing these like super short shorts. God, what have I done to deserve reading these lines? I wish we didn't get a Jake POV. That was completely unnecessary. I never want to be in this man's mind. Ever. Call Child Protective Services, call FBI, call an entire SWAT team to take the men in this Vanderberg family away from, I can't even say a woman because she's barely a woman, she's a child. But at this point, the Credence enthusiast will come at me, really pushing on the fact that I just don't understand. We just do not understand the nuances and complexities of this book. Tiernan is essentially traumatized, and she's doing this to reclaim her power. Look, everyone deals with trauma in a different way. If you want to shaboink your entire stepfamily to deal with your parents' double suicide, who am I to judge? Clearly, she's a child, she's vulnerable, she doesn't know any better, she lacks experience in every sort of category. She's also very isolated, she doesn't have any friends or other family members she can depend on, other than that one assistant lady that is not even included for most of the book. She can only reach her through phone calls. Having horizontal relations, or just having a physical relationship with a person who's supposed to be your legal guardian, a person whom you are both legally and financially dependent upon. It does not seem very empowering to me. You thought this was the only messed up thing that happened in the book? You're wrong. Unfortunately, we're only getting started. In the beginning of the story, when Tiernan first moves to this mountain cabin with this family, she gets introduced to the younger son Noah pretty early on. Thankfully, my neighbor stopped whatever they were doing. We always hear about the older son, Kaleb, in a few distant remarks. And it does make you curious because all the remarks made about Kaleb from other characters are kind of vague, weird, and off-putting. They're like, oh yeah, Kaleb is probably somewhere in the woods doing God knows what in complete isolation for months on end. And then as the reader, you're like, this Kaleb guy seems kind of interesting. I feel like there will be more story including him. I can't really erase it from my mind what happened between this 40-something-year-old crusty dusty guy and his step-nephew, but this character seems promising. This character at least seems interesting. So let's keep reading and see what happens. So guys, Kaleb, the older brother, is supposed to be the main love interest in the story. So let's look at some of the things he's done to understand what kind of personality he has. Upon meeting Tiernan, he immediately tries to shaboink her down and have horizontal relations with her against her will. She says stop, but he continues until Tiernan throws something in his way for him to stop. Great, moving on. He spits on her face in a non-consensual way and then writes on her forehead because she shaboinked both Noah, the younger brother, and Kaleb's dad, Jake. Yeah, moving on. There's a scene where Tiernan gets injured because she was running away from like a shed that was burning down, and she's pretty hurt. She's wailing in pain. So the two brothers try and help her the best way they know how. So Kaleb puts her down on this table and smacks the shit out of her, I guess to stop her from being such an emotional and hysterical woman. And it works. They immediately start making out, and then the younger brother Noah joins in. Anyways, I could do so many better things. I could go outside and touch some grass. At this point, I need to touch like an entire forest. So it's the midway point of the book when the mountains get snowed in the winter and they can't leave their cabin for a few months. The shaboinking increases and tensions rise. It is also the time when Tiernan, she's still in high school. Just thought I should remind you guys that. So she's applying to colleges and universities because she's still in high school. As Tiernan is applying to universities and colleges, Kaleb, who's already at that point, is in a physical relationship with Tiernan, decides on a whim to throw away her birth control. And the thing is, she very intentionally has stocked up for the winter because she knows she can't go to the small town nearby and, get new birth control every month. But Kaleb very purposefully throws away her birth control. Why, you ask? Because he does not want her to leave to another state or to another place for university, so he wants to baby trap her. Basically. But don't worry guys, this isn't all that he's done. He's just such a complex and nuanced human being. There is both bad and good within him. So let's look at some of the pros of him, right? Some of the nice romantic things he's done for Tiernan to give his character true justice. He's hot. He's described to be tall, conventionally attractive, and well-built. He's mute. There is no elaboration with that, really. A man who doesn't talk, who can't talk, sign me up. He gave Tiernan a belt that he hand-carved himself. He's an artist who is good with his hands. I love a man who has artistic endeavors. He reads, and he has a huge library. Honestly, a surprising pro, because I honestly don't know a lot of men who read or who can read. He's protective, I guess. True, he's both physically and sexually assaulted Tiernan, but if another guy from town tries to do the very same things, he comes running for help. We learned that apparently our friend Kaleb is mute, not as a personal choice, but as a response to trauma, because when he was a child, his super irresponsible, drug-addicted mom left him in a hot car when she was going on to one of her benders, and Kaleb had to basically survive days on end in this car, crying, screaming for help, and just living in his own defecation and urine, which is pretty dark, pretty messed up. And it explains, I guess, partially why he's super weird and closed off, but not entirely. The thing I don't get is that the book makes Kaleb seem as if he's the odd one out. He is the weird one, the off-putting, the dangerous one in the family. And I don't think so. Every man in this family is a predator. Every man in this family is messed up in the head. And every family member is enabling the things that Kaleb does on a regular basis. I don't really see much of a difference in the level of messed up between family members. It's portrayed as if Jake and Noah are these, very responsible, well-minded, functioning members of society, and they're absolutely not. They're also creepy. They're also weird. It is very clear that both Uncle Jake and his two sons haven't been accountable for anything in their life. It is mentioned that they haven't lived with a woman for a long time. There is no like mother figure, no feminine figure in their life because their biological mother is in jail. But this is different from the My Mexico lady, and it is implied, I mean, not even implied, it's very explicitly stated. Because the cabin gets snowed in like almost half year, they kind of take in some sort of woman with them, or some woman somehow fully consensually come to this cabin, only to be used as a meat toy. They allow the men to let go of their frustrations when they can't go into town and can't shaboink. I do not believe for a single moment that a woman consensually comes to live with them for like 6 months only to be their plaything, because they're just so hot to keep them company. Yuck. They have no like emotional attachment to these women, and I do not believe this for a second. So here's the thing. I understand to an extent people do one night stands with, people they find attractive, but also, have you ever seen a guy, a gorgeous guy, a beautiful specimen, if you will, but the moment they begin speaking, they're so creepy. They give off such creepy PDF vibes. I do not believe for a second that these women are going up there. I do believe maybe they go there like once in a while for like a one night stand. I understand, but like I know their rooms smell like unwashed sheets and musk, and their bathroom sink is filled with facial hair. I mean, the way any of these men are described, I would hide any kid in the vicinity if I ever saw someone like that. And I absolutely should, because they might just try to f them before they turn 18. Even so, I can see why they're attractive to some people. I guess my type isn't really this super mega white American burly men that carry guns, ride dirt bikes, and cut woods in the mountains. My type is more like Asians who do jiu-jitsu. But in general, I also don't understand why they're portrayed to be so cool and manly and rugged and like primal. They're resourceful, I'll give them that. They know how to prepare for the winter, they know how to stock food, they know how to hunt. But the characters themselves, they're all super closeted, weird, creepy, and also sexist. There's a lot of remarks about what Tiernan is wearing going to town, and they're like, oh, you can't wear that. We have a responsibility to protect you. What are you talking about? Protect her from yourself, please. Like, stay away from her. Get away from her as far as you can. Like, you've done enough damage. Like, you can't talk about protecting this minor, barely legal adult girl when you've been inside her. Like, please. I cannot pretend like if I had to live in this house with these men, if I was forced to, I would never choose that on my own volition. I'd lock my door shut tight every night. I guess from the main characters I've touched on the least is Noah, because there isn't really that much to talk about him. He's just kind of a cuck, if you don't mind me saying that. He's portrayed to be the most normal one in the family, and again, to that I say no. He gives me major Mr. Nice Guy vibes. And until recently, I didn't think that that would scare me so much. People who give me Mr. Nice Guy vibes, who aren't actually nice, but who put on this facade of a nice person to get something, they scare me. Those people scare me. And Noah scares me too. I don't know how he hasn't shut up at school yet. To summarize my opinions about the main family, the Vanderberg family, which also means from the hill, from the mountain. Oh, Penelope Douglas. You and your word games, you're so smart. All three of these men, they're absolute trash. I cannot find a single redeeming quality about any of them. Tiernan is not the smartest bulb in the room, for sure, but it's so clear that these men take advantage of her in the time where she is literally the most vulnerable. While she's grieving, she's isolated, and she's all alone, living with people she's just met. And in her head, in her inner monologue, it is always as if she's in control. She's the one initiating things. But a lot of the time, she doesn't, and the other family members just like throw themselves onto her. And in her head, she has to, I guess, justify it and be like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. You find these people attractive. You find their personality, you find their character attractive. You basically want a conservative Turkish uncle as a boyfriend if you find these characters attractive. I'm sorry. And quite frankly, the amount of abuse, sexual assault, and incest that is romanticized in this book is not only appalling, it's very, very concerning. It would have been one thing if this book served as some kind of warning of how when you're so deeply vulnerable and emotionally troubled, when you're in a process of grieving someone, how some people around you can pretend like they're saving you, but they're actually just taking advantage of you. And again, because you're so traumatized, you think, you're doing this for yourself, and you feel control and autonomy in the situation, but it's kind of delusional. And because you're emotionally vulnerable and because you're deeply traumatized, you think that it's a good idea and it's liberating to shaboink your entire stepfamily, sometimes with multiple of them in the same room. It would actually be really impactful if at the end Tiernan just moved out of the house and had some sort of self-reflection period where she was like, damn, I was so emotionally vulnerable. I didn't know what I wanted, so I did these reckless things. She'd maybe reflect on the fact that these men who are older, more experienced in literally every area of life than her, took advantage of her emotions and her body and her isolation when she was at her worst, when she was at her most vulnerable. It could have been an interesting commentary. I feel like this is, I don't mean to diagnose anything, but it is common in borderline personality disorder for people who are feeling a certain type of way to engage in very reckless behavior. If Tiernan was portrayed to be as someone who had borderline personality disorder, it would have been an interesting discussion of reflecting on these things she's done to deal with the condition she has, that she had these reckless physical relations with a lot of people to just fill this void inside her. But unfortunately, our girl Tiernan is so deep down into the layers of DELULU. She's in the deep magma level of DELULU, so past in the point of the I can fix him community that she can almost run for a party. It also does not make sense why she's so delusional and accepting of the things that is happening to her within the Vanderburg family, because if anyone else outside of the family, if some creepy dude in town says something weird to her, if he tries to make some sort of advance, she immediately gets weirded out. She's like, ew, creepy, yuck. But if it's the Vanderburg family, they somehow get a free pass. It does not even register. Even the most vile, disgusting things in this book are presented in this lukewarm, positive light that really infuriates me. It's always portrayed as if she's making the choice. She is the one that has the autonomy. She's the one being empowered. But physically, even if she wanted, when the cabin is snowed in, she can't even leave. It's kind of like watching a chicken line up in a KFC line being like, yeah, I really want to be turned into a great meal. And the KFC people are like, yeah, okay, since you've come to our doorstep, we'll take advantage of you. And then after the chicken has been turned into a great meal, they're like, oh my god, that was great. I feel so empowered. 10 out of 10 would do it again. Again, the story ends on a very happy, nauseatingly happy note. The collective levels of delusion does not only not register for Tiernan, but also does not register for the entire family. And personally, I find that very unrealistic. In the epilogue, a few years have passed by. Tiernan has gone to university, come back. She's married with Kaleb, and they have a child together. They're in the wilderness for a camping trip. Kaleb is able to talk again. Just a wholesome family. A wholesome family. It is the family-friendly, appropriate vibes that I love. Oh, but it's not only just them and their child. It's also Uncle or Grandfather Jake and Uncle Noah with them in the wilderness. They're all camping together as one happy family. Not like anything weird happened between all of them. I can't take this seriously because where I come from, there is a very famous Turkish reality crime show that everyone and their mother has watched at least once, called Müge Anlı. This show only exists because somewhere in a remote Turkish village, an entire family decided to make a train similar to what happened in Credence. Someone does someone's uncle, someone's shaboink, someone's stepdaughter, then the dads do it together. It gets vile, it gets disgusting, it gets scary. And because after this whole thing is done, it gets so awkward for them. The tension gets so high because they already live in a small community. They already all know each other. They can't stand it, and someone ends up killing the other in the family. Credence, to me, is very unrealistic because no one killed each other. Noah would be the type. Just like one day kill Kaleb out of spite because Tiernan chose him. Just saying, man, it's not realistic that they can just go on this innocent camping trip while there's no awkwardness, no tension. It's just like, oh, we just have a great family life. Are you kidding me? I've read fantasy and science fiction stories more realistic than this. I just feel so sad for this fictional kid. Imagine your mom slept not only with your dad, but also your uncle and also your grandfather, who's also technically your step-great-uncle. Ooh, that kid is gonna have a tough life, to say the least. So those were all my thoughts about Credence by Penelope Douglas. Now, if you will excuse me guys, I need to go out and touch some grass.